everybody, welcome to Typical Geeks, episode number 17. And joining me today is our co-host, Jack McLean. Jack, how the heck are you?
Doing good.
It's been a while since we did one of these.
You know how it is.
Well, lots been happening since the last episode. We had the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. Some E3. Isn't that what it's called? E3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
the game thing that just happened. So that conference just went over. So anyhow, I think we got a good show lined up for everybody. You know, Jack, I was telling you, I'm a southpaw, right? So I got this right here, the Logitech Performance MX mouse. You got one of those too. Okay. A lot of they sell these things by the millions.
Great mice.
They are great mice, but I'm a couple things. I've been having some problems, particularly with lag, input lag, and because it is wireless, and I'm using like a USB dongle that's on the PC with this thing,
right?
And like I said, I'll be and I'm running a dual display setup here on the PC, and sometimes the mouse or the cursor will just kind of wig out on me on this thing, and I'm also left-handed. Right? And guess what? There is not very many mice for left-handed people.
No, there's not.
I think Razer's got the Death Adder available for lefty. There's a couple other companies that have a left-handed mouse or ambidextrous mouse, but most of them are all made for right-handed people.
Got a question for you. Is there any other wireless device anywhere close to your mouse when you're using it?
As a matter of fact, of course, there's a Logitech G930 gaming headset. That's pretty close. And then that's pretty much it.
I've noticed if I have my phone, for instance, anywhere close to my mouse, I'll get that same type of lag. So I can take my iPhone and I can set it within a foot of my mouse, and I will get really, really bad lag on my mouse. As soon as I move the phone away from it or the iPad away from it, the problem goes away.
I am going to try something real quick here. I just want to go into output settings and output. I'm going to adjust your left a little bit. See if I can't balance you out.
Okay. Yeah, I need to be balanced.
Yeah, well, that didn't work anyway. So I don't know. It's one thing, it's another with all this. And you know what, folks? Before we started recording, we had already been through this, and it's just the way it is with software and all this other stuff. Anyhow,
technology for you.
Yeah. So I decided, basically I have a Logitech, it's the G710 Plus gaming keyboard. I have a Logitech G930 gaming headset. I might as well just stay in the Logitech world. So this I just ordered, and it is the Logitech I think it's the Proteus. Yeah, the Logitech G502 Proteus Core gaming mouse right here. And it is a thing of beauty. And I got it for $79 on eBay. Now, why a gaming mouse? Why not just, regular conventional mouse? Well, the fact of the matter is that I do play a lot of games, but more importantly, this thing really makes an excellent everyday driver as well, this mouse. The big complaint some people have with it is kind of on the heavy side, but there's weights that you can actually put in the mouse and remove from the mouse. So you can control the weight and balance of the Logitech Proteus 502, as well as programmable. There's 11 different programmable buttons on there. And so you can do some kind of, you set up some gaming profiles like Battlefield, Call of Duty, Skyrim, whatever you want to do. You can set up some gaming profiles right with it. It's also it goes up to 12,000 DPI on this thing. So it's like really precision, and you can back that off if you want to do some sniping or whatever on here. And also you've got the gaming wheel, the dual mode and hyper-fast scroll wheel, which is a really cool feature on this. And what else is this thing? Oh, yeah, it actually has a 32-bit microcontroller built in.
Well, the thing is, I think if it's built for gamers, if it's built for gaming in mind, that's very high end, very rigorous stuff for a mouse to be doing. And if it's built for a gamer, then most likely it's going to stand up to anything you're going to throw at it.
Well, that was kind of my thoughts on the mouse. This has gotten really excellent reviews. It'll work great with the Logitech gaming software that I already have installed for the headset and also for the keyboard. Mm-hmm. It all kind of goes together. So it's kind of a Logitech ecosystem. I guess I tend to be a Logitech fan of a lot of their peripherals, whether it's their webcams, their keyboards, their mice, etc. I think Logitech does a really good job. Now, I understand everybody's got their own preferences, but I thought, because a mouse is something, you just work with day in and day out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't give them a whole lot of thought as far as things like ergonomics, their tracking, all these other issues, things
if there's an ergonomics issue with the mouse after the first or second day, you're going to want to throw it through the wall. Well, you will know.
This mouse right here, the Apple Magic Mouse,
I hate it.
I absolutely detest it. The only magic about it was how Apple got what are these things, $60? How they magically got the $60 from it.
No,
I do use it with the Mac Pro, but $69? Yeah. Okay.
$69. I had mine for about 2 weeks and I sold it. And I sold it, I guess what most people consider a loss. I had no money in it anyway, but I sold that and the keyboard that came with my iMac for $50 for the both of them. I couldn't get that thing away from me fast enough. If a mouse doesn't fit your hand properly, I don't know about you, but I've been using a mouse here for about 20 years, and I have carpal tunnel. Mm-hmm. And after about 30 to 45 minutes, if the mouse doesn't fit my hand properly, I get really bad cramps, and I just can't work with it anymore. And I think the Magic Mouse was probably the absolute worst I have ever tried as far as that.
Oh, yeah, the Magic, well, I think the thing about the Magic Mouse, one of my biggest beasts, if people look at this, if you're not familiar with them, if you look at the edges, they're actually kind of a little bit on the sharp side. Mm-hmm. You'll see that it's shaped like a bar of soap.
Yep.
All right.
And there would be nothing wrong with that if it would give you something to hang on to, but there's nothing to fill your palm, so you find yourself trying to lay your hand down on the mouse, and then that doesn't work either.
Right. So. No, they're not a good mouse, and I'm surprised Apple's not redesigned them yet, and hopefully they will. Now, the thing about the Logitech Performance MX mouse, this particular style of mouse has been around a long time. Mm-hmm. A long time. Now, if we go back and take a look at the Proteus, let me go up there and get another picture on this on screen here.
Yeah, they have a really beautifully designed site.
Don't they, though? It loads a little slow, but it's not bad. But if you take a look at this thing right here, you kind of see they actually did deviate a little bit from that design, but not. It's actually still fairly close. So ergonomically, it's still a right-handed mouse. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things. If you're a lefty like me, you tend to get. You tend to get used to using a mouse right-handed. My problem is I have torn rotator cuffs in both shoulders. Mm-hmm. So my arm will begin to start aching at the end of the day from using it, right-handed. But
what is the? You said you got yours off eBay for $79?
No, I bought it on Amazon.
Amazon for how much?
$79.
Is that what the retail is?
That's retail price. You can't. Okay. I haven't found them anywhere any cheaper.
All
right. But this thing has excellent reviews. Rated at like 20 million clicks on there. Really? I'm good at 20 million. Okay, that's fine. Here's like I said, to sum up the reasons I bought it. One, it's not wireless. It is a wired mouse, and it's got a really heavy cord, that comes with it. Mm-hmm. So it'll shouldn't be having any more problems with input lag. Mm-hmm. Okay, that should go away. Wired mice, especially, that's one of the reasons why gaming mice are almost always wired. Even though the wireless are getting better. But at the end of the day, a wired gaming mouse has less input lag. Mm-hmm. Second, I have the programmable buttons on there because I do love to game, sit here on the PC and game. I like the higher resolution DPI on this thing. It's got a apparently with the software, it basically fine-tunes itself to whatever surface you have it on. It's weighted so you can add or remove weight to the mouse. A lot of people with all the weights say it's kind of a heavy mouse. Just back out the weights that you don't want. The ergonomics of it are really, really nice as far as the right-handed mouse goes. The build quality on these things are excellent, according to all the reviews that I've seen. It is just a great all-around mouse. You can use it for everyday productivity, or first thing you know, you're using it as a gaming mouse. Is it the best on the market? I really don't know, and I'll be quite honest. I don't know. There's people like the Razer Death Adder. There's other gaming mice out there, but Corsair makes a real nice gaming mouse.
I'll tell you what, after about 2 or 3 weeks of use, why don't you turn us out a review on that?
I think I will, but and the final reason, of course, is I'm already using the Logitech gaming software anyhow, so I'm already in that Logitech ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So that's why I bought that. When I get it, I'm going to do an unboxing video and a review of it.
Okay.
And there you go.
That's good.
This is kind of interesting. There's a big push in the 4K world, right? 4K video. Mm-hmm. That's what everybody's pushing now.
Right.
And you can get 4K TVs now fairly inexpensively. There's a new crop of 4K monitors coming out. The problem is, if you're you got a kind of a multi-issue thing here. You've got the production, the 4K, producing the 4K content, and you've got distribution of the 4K content, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of moving parts. Well, most people are not prepared to take advantage of 4K right now, as far as on the consumption side. How many people's got a monitor capable of 4K or 4K TV? Very, very few.
Right.
They're just not very typical out there. All right, and then on the content producer side, you've got to invest in a 4K capable camera. Those are very expensive. I'm not talking about 4K phones taking 4K video. I'm talking about camcorders or DSLRs that shoot 4K video. Then, of course, you've got to have a really powerful computer to process 4K, right? Because you're talking, twice the resolution.
And no matter how powerful it is, you're looking at hours of rendering time.
Right. 4K video is just 4,000 pixels across and a couple thousand down. It's crazy.
Four times that of 1080p.
Yeah, 4 times that of 1080p. And so you got all that resolution, and it requires a really powerful piece of hardware. But the other thing is, as a content producer, buying a 4K capable DSLR or camcorder. Mm-hmm. There's a new crop of them coming out around $2,500 or whatever. So lo and behold, when this crossed my path the other day, this is the new Lumix FZ1000. It's a Lumix DMC 1000 bridge camera, and it goes on sale in July for $897. It's called a bridge camera, so it's not quite a point and shoot. It's not a DSLR. It's in between, if you will. That does 4K video for $897. This is going to be, I think, a camera for and I'm just putting it out there, for a lot of YouTube content creators that want to jump into 4K and do it reasonably and have a good all-around device to record 4K videos. I think this is going to be the ticket right here. Now, some of the features on this camera, one, it's got a Leica lens, and Leica makes some of the best glass in the business. And it weighs maybe about a third of what a DSLR with the same glass, equivalent glass, would weigh, and for a fraction of the price, right? It's got a full 1-inch MOS sensor on it, which is pretty doggone good. It's got a great electronic viewfinder on it. The lens is equivalent, I want to say, of 20 millimeter to 400 millimeter, 35 millimeter equivalent lens. So it's a long zoom, 16 times optical zoom with 49 points of image stability, or 49 points of autofocus on there. It's got a new image stabilization engine on it. This is a really nice piece of kit. Now I'm using the Lumix DMC FZ1000 to produce my videos in. And then Panasonic came out with the G4, I think is what it's called, the G4 camera. And another amazing piece of kit. This camera's really got it going on. And I just see, well, yeah, the GH4 is rather the GH4 is like a $1,700 camera. And now you can get it for under $900, and they're available for pre-order now on B&H Photo and other sites. And here's some more photos of it. Another very cool feature is the fact that it also has a 3-inch fully articulating LED display, which is great. So you can use it in a nice environment that way. It's got a hot shoe. It also has a 3.5 millimeter accessory audio in, and it does support Dolby Digital surround sound as well. All this built into this camera. So you can essentially, you can basically use this as your camcorder. Let's see. Let me pull up some more photos of this thing. So you can use it as a camcorder. You can use it as a point and shoot. It comes with a fully automatic mode. It's got different scene modes on there. And it's one piece of glass. You don't have to buy the multiple lenses. So for somebody that's really not a professional photographer, but you're a very serious photographer, it's a really nice camera for the money. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat. And the ability to record that 4K video. See, here's my thinking. I got to be honest with you, Jack. I see potential YouTubers out there using this camera to basically create 4K content.
I think that the argument about 4K can go either way. Do I think it is the future? Yeah, it's definitely the future. But the thing is, right now, most people aren't set up to view 4K content anyway. They don't have a monitor or a TV capable of 4K content. That being said, I think where people will benefit most from 4K is people like us, people who are going to buy this camera to produce content. And the reason why I say that is because the technology is going to push the technology forward. So what that means is you're going to be able to get better content for less money, or better content, better tools for less money. And that's what it's going to do. It's going to push the technology forward. And that's always a good thing. Technology being pushed forward like that, it's always a good thing, regardless if the average person can tell the difference between 1080p or 4K.
I agree with you. Now, here's another situation, though. If you start out, though, with a 4K source, right, you can, and then when you downsample this to 1080p, I think you're going to, and this is what people say, and this is what I've read. I've never experienced this. I've never owned 4K gear. But they say you do get sharper, better quality 1080p from the downsampling from 4K to 1080. So,
right.
I would do that. I mean, if I, because I make lots of little 5 to 10 minute YouTube videos, record in 4K, then downsample it to 1080p and then shoot it out.
Right. So from a content provider's point of view, this is a win-win situation.
Well, this gets you there. This gives you something to work with until that's affordable. Get you in there at affordable price. You can do that. You can still record in 4K. You can edit in 4K, but then downsample as you're outputting and rendering the video and encoding it into 1080p, and you should get a little bit better image. That's the thought. Right. Now, as to how accurate that is, I don't know, but I have seen recording in 1080p and downsampling to 720p works out pretty well. So I can only assume that it
should
would
carry over.
Right. But obviously there's people that's jumping into that 4K bandwagon. It's going to get more affordable over the next few years. I'm not telling people to rush out and buy one right now. Do what I did. With the FZ1000, I waited a couple years while I was in production, and then I bought one used. Right. And I got it for a few $100, and maybe that's what people will do. I don't know.
And you don't have the name Frugal Tech for nothing,
Well, it's
a matter of you have your people who are on the bleeding edge of everything, and they always have to have the latest, greatest. Yeah. A lot of times, especially when it comes to cameras, especially when it comes to other types of technology like that, it's better to sit back and wait a couple of years and see where the technology goes, and then get in on it. It just is, because usually, if you'll wait a couple of years, you're going to get something better, and you're going to get it for a lot less money than if you're right there on the bleeding edge.
I'm not a bleeding edge kind of guy, and I'm the first one to admit it. I'm just not. But I would say if I was interested in 4K video, this would be the camera, in my opinion, to get at this time.
Be time to jump on it.
I would jump all over this camera, and I believe that they'll probably be totally sold out for a while. Mm-hmm. There's just no doubt about it. And of course, it can do some amazing stuff with 1080p video, and I won't go into all the specs on this thing, but it is the Panasonic Lumix DMC FZ or FZ for our Canadian and UK friends. The FZ1000 camera for $897. I think it's a win. And I'm not really a camera head. I'll be the first one to admit that, but I'm impressed with this camera. And I think it would be a good buy if you're looking to create some 4K content right now. Really do. Mm-hmm. We need to get started talking a little bit about the and let's just jump right to this WWDC.
Mm-hmm. In my opinion,
we're a day late and $1 short on that, but that's okay because I've actually had people say, "Well, Bruce, what are your thoughts on WWDC?" DC? And I said, "Well, yeah, I need to put something together." So here we are. We're going to talk about it. Jack, I'll let you lead off with your thoughts on WWDC 2014.
My initial impression was it was the probably the best, or in terms of the announcements made and the new tech that's coming out, it's probably the best WWDC they've ever had. Just from the amount of stuff that they pushed out. And they said early on, this is going to be all about, because people were talking about new tech. They wanted to see a new gadget. They wanted to see an iWatch. They wanted to see something. And, historically, I mean, if you look back, WWDC has not been about that. It's been about the software and it's been about the developers, hence the name Worldwide Developer Conference.
Right.
And so the people expecting the new hardware, I'm not sure, that's just people that got their hopes up for nothing, basically. But the amount of software and the amount of new tech as far as software goes that came out, or was announced rather, to me it was absolutely amazing. Just the amount of stuff. And they said right up front, this is going to be all about iOS and OS 10. And they told people that right up front, and then they proceeded to go on with, there's no way we're going to be able to cover everything they talked about. I mean, even at a glance, there's no way we're going to be able to talk about all of it here, but some pretty major stuff with both the desktop operating system and iOS.
I think I can sum it up in one word. I'm going to really try. And that word is continuity. To me, that's the big story of WWDC, is all about continuity. And it just simply means that this, prior to Yosemite and iOS 8 and all that, things are a bit disjointed out there. The ability of the phone to communicate with your Mac, to communicate with your iPad, all these sort of things, isn't really there today. That all changes with the introduction of Yosemite and iOS 8, right there. It's all about continuity. It's all about making it more seamless in that iOS ecosystem, which is something really Google can't lay claim to right now. Microsoft can't lay claim to right now. And, Apple's kind of beating them to the punch on that.
Oh, absolutely. If you're in the Apple ecosystem already, this right here just kind of cemented your place into it. And if you own any iDevice whatsoever, this every announcement they made at WWDC, almost every announcement they made there is more even more reason to suck you in deeper into the Apple ecosystem. So if you have an iPhone, now you have even more reasons to own a Mac. Or if you own a Mac, now you have even more reasons to get an iPad or an iPhone or what have you. But it'll suck you even deeper into the ecosystem.
Now, some things Apple's playing catch up on, for example, adding gadgets to the notification center iOS. I mean, Android's had that for how long?
All right.
I mean, that's nothing new. I mean, some of it is definitely catch up on Apple's part,
Well, right, and some
I say thank God for Android. I really do.
That's right. Without Android, people give me a hard time because they say I bash Android. And there's a lot about Android I don't like. But I will say this, like you said, thank God for Android because it keeps Apple honest and it keeps pushing them forward. If it wasn't for Android, Apple could kind of sit back on its laurels and say, hey, this is good. This is, we can introduce a new feature every once in a while, but this is good enough. No, with Android on its heels, they have to be pushed forward. And the same on their desktop operating system with Microsoft doing some of the things that they're doing. It's pushing Apple to do more and better. So
the other thing is, and of course the big story in iOS 8 is the way it's handling SMS and messages.
Well, it's about time they fixed that.
It's really being fixed. And the thing is, there's millions of iPhone owners out there right now, millions, and messaging is the most popular app according to them for the phone for an iPhone.
Right.
And a lot of people have been using like Snapchat and that kind of thing. They want the messages to disappear,
right?
After so long. So obviously, some of these new features to iOS 8 will kind of hurt some of these third-party apps out there.
Yeah,
but also I like the fact that Apple's finally opening up the apps that allow them to communicate with one another,
right?
Which is
that is a big deal.
And I like it in the Apple ecosystem over the Android environment because, as we know, Android, unfortunately, it is. How did Apple put it? It is a witch's brew or something of malware.
Toxic hell stew.
Toxic hell stew. Well. See, the thing is,
and I cannot bring myself to disagree with that statement.
Well, here's the problem. One of the reasons I like the iOS world, not to bash on, Windows Phone or not to bash on Android, is that the updates come directly from Apple to the phone. And I'm not relying on the manufacturers to push out an update. And I understand, like Samsung, HTC, and all these guys put out sort of a specialized version of Android for their phones. So they're the ones that needs to run the updates. But what is the average Android user, like 3 generations behind on Android or something like that? Did I hear that correctly?
Did you see the numbers?
Yeah, I did.
The average, was it, I think 9% of Android users are running the latest
it's
Android
a very small fraction. But again, in Android...
Something like 81% of Apple users are running the latest version of iOS.
Right, but the reason for that is that these phones are not running pure stock Android. They're running a customized version of Android by the phone manufacturer.
Exactly.
And it's up to the phone people to push it out.
And they don't.
No, it breaks whatever some of the stuff that they're doing there.
Yep.
And I don't find that concept really appealing. I was talking to somebody the other day about iPhone, and they're expensive, of course, and they're behind hardware wise with a lot of different phones that I can get out there in the market today, especially in the Android world. The camera's way behind what Nokia is doing with, say, the 1520, which has got a fantastic camera on it, all these things. But here's the thing. What I like about iOS is that, yes, this walled garden ecosystem, but it works. I'm always I get the latest and greatest. It comes from Apple rather than me waiting on Verizon to push it out. And it's all this, in my opinion, iOS works very, very, very well. And I never give a thought to malicious software or malware being installed on my phone. I never worry about that.
No, okay. and you brought up a point there about it being behind hardware wise. Being behind is kind of a relative term when you're talking about technology, because it's kind of it's a little different when you're talking about the operating system versus operating system. If you're talking about Android versus iOS, it's kind of like talking about the Mac versus Windows. You can do a lot more with a lot less hardware with iOS than you can an Android device. And it's the exact same way with OS X versus Windows. You can do a lot more with the operating system with a lot less CPU and RAM. Mm-hmm. So to say an iPhone is behind technology-wise because it's not running 2 gigs of RAM and a quad-core processor is kind of misleading, because with their process, with the A7 chip that they're currently running, and soon to be A8, but with the current A7 chip and only a gig of RAM, they can do stuff that Android requires 2 gigs of RAM and a quad core chip to do, and without breaking a sweat. So, and it's plenty fast. So, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference. End user's not going to be able to tell a difference between a phone running a gig of RAM and iOS and a dual core processor, and an Android phone running a quad core processor and 4 gigs of RAM. They're not going to be able to tell the difference.
Well, I think there's some merit to what you say, as to the effect that Apple's in very tight control of the operating system and the hardware.
And it works.
Doing a really good match between the two, rather than, okay, we've got this operating system. I'm a hardware manufacturer. Now I'm going to try to mash it all up. I understand that. However, give the devil his due. Pure Android is a truly wonderful thing.
It can be, but how many people are running pure Android?
Not that many. Not that many. Windows Phone is actually quite nice, by the way. There is
right, and the reason for that is exactly what you said. Is because when these other manufacturers get a hold of it, they take the pure Android experience and they corrupt it. They put their own stuff over the top of it, their own overlay of software, their own branding, and it turns out to be this mishmash of just. Well, as Apple said, this toxic hell stew of, no two devices are alike. You might be running a Samsung Galaxy S3, and I might be running the exact same phone, but it's a completely different experience because I bought mine from Verizon. You got yours from AT&T. So it's a completely different experience as far as the operating system goes. It's just not.
No, I really don't. I mean, as far as different experience, no, I disagree. We're going to agree to disagree. I think in generally they work the same. But they do specific customizations to it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
Okay.
Exactly what I mean.
But give Windows Phone its due. I wish Microsoft would have gotten to the game a few years earlier than what they did.
Well,
because I really like Windows Phone. I know I really like Windows Phone.
Right.
I think it's gorgeous. I think the hardware is awesome on the phone.
Right. And in typical Microsoft fashion, though, that's kind of what they did. They kind of waited around and they did what they did. But as far as you were talking about continuity, and you're talking about the iPhone and the tech that's built into the iPhone, the A7 chip is right now it's a desktop, what they're considering a desktop class processor almost in a phone. Now, say what you will about, some of the processors that are coming out in your Android phones, your quad core and whatever other processors.
Snapdragons and all that.
Snapdragons and all that. You can say what you will, but the A7 chip is plenty fast. And I think with the new iOS 8 and some of the features that are coming out, I mean, it is a very, very complete operating system. And you can say, well, they borrowed features from Android. Well, yay, that's great. Android borrows features from iOS all the time. Guess who benefits?
Right.
We do, the consumer, the end users. So I think that's a wonderful thing. And also, I think there's a lot of people talking about, well, Apple Sherlocked several features. For instance, Sketch, when you're talking about the mail markup in Yosemite, they kind of Sherlocked several things from Dropbox. So it's almost to the point now where if you're going to be running iOS 8 on your iDevice and you're going to be running Yosemite on your desktop, you really don't need Dropbox anymore.
No, that's true. Well, yeah, because Dropbox has got to do something about their pricing.
Well, and that's the
thing, they're just going to be so far out of the park.
And the reason for that is because for years they have been the de facto cloud system. I mean, that's one of the first things you install whenever you set up your computer is Dropbox. And
does anybody use Google Drive? I do. I use Google Drive.
Oh, I use Google Drive and Dropbox.
Yeah, I use them both. Now, here's the interesting thing. I just want to point. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, but
I don't pay for them.
I do pay for Google Drive, but because I use Google Apps for Business, right?
Okay, right.
Yeah, so I did the paid storage thing, which is really cheap, by the way.
But have you checked the price of Dropbox versus the new cloud service from Apple?
Oh yeah, it's like ridiculously out of the park.
Ridiculously, and I mean for your average person. Your average person, 5 gigs is just not enough, in my opinion. That's where Dropbox starts you. No, was it 2 gigs or 5 gigs now that Dropbox starts you off?
Was it 2?
I think it's 2 gigs.
I think it's 2 gigs.
Of course, you can do little tricks here and there and sign other people up and invites and all that, and you can get 4 or 5 gigs for free, which I'm running. I think I got 5 gigs of storage right now. But here's the thing about it. Compare that to your average person, in my opinion, 5 gigs is just not enough. Your average person has a couple of gigs just in pictures.
Got like 30.
Oh, yeah. 10 to 20 gigs. Now you're talking about your average person. You're talking 20 gigs. You're talking your average person. And with Apple, you're looking at $1.99 a month for 20 gigs. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's ridiculous compared to if you look at the same amount of storage on your Dropbox. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then if you look at your yearly prices and you start to add it up, I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I think for people running iDevices, Dropbox is going to be one of those things that's not going to need to be installed anymore unless you're going to be running in a mixed environment where you're going to be running PCs and Macs, and maybe you don't want to have to access the web every time you pull your information down. But if you're primarily Apple and you're primarily iOS, there's not going to be a reason for Dropbox anymore.
Other than that, there was the introduction of Swift. That's Apple's new programming language, which is a high-level language. It kind of puts you in mind of like Python or something like that.
Right.
I'm not really a developer, so...
I've talked to a few developers, though, that were really happy about it.
Yeah, same here.
Actually, they were giggling when...
they seem to like it, so that's cool. Yosemite, other than... the notification center has been greatly improved. Mm-hmm. The integration of web searching is with Spotlight, relocating it. The translucency, that's neither.
By the way, that's one of those features you were talking about. Spotlight. That's one of those features they say pretty much has been they Sherlocked Quicksilver and Alfred and programs like that, is what people are saying, that they basically took yeah, I know you're familiar with Quicksilver and
I remember Quicksilver from a long time ago. That was
right.
Start like a launcher app, wasn't it? Quicksilver.
Right, Quicksilver's one. What is it? Alfred is another one. Yeah. And what people are saying is basically they've Sherlocked those two and kind of combined it into the Spotlight and given people that option. So, I mean, it's just another one. And Apple is notorious for this. Well, you can say they're notorious. You can say they're great about doing this. But what Apple does generally is they look around and they say, you know what? What's one of the first apps that people install on their Mac? When they get a new Mac, they get it home, they take the shrink wrap off of it. What are some of the main apps, the go-to must-have apps that they have to install on it to do anything? Dropbox. Okay, well, we're going to have a Dropbox killer. Okay, Alfred. Okay, well, we're going to modify Spotlight and we're going to have an Alfred killer. And I think that's what they've done here. And I mean, that's not a bad thing. If Windows would do this, we'd all be better off. You know what I mean? It's not a bad thing that they're doing this.
Well, I think Microsoft ultimately will.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Microsoft, like I said, the translucency, Jack. I mean, I could care less about it.
You know, the thing is it's the iOSification of the operating system. I don't like it on iOS 7, and I don't like it on my desktop operating system either. The translucency, it's unnecessary. I don't really like the flatness of it.
Yeah.
It is what it is, to each their own, and it's personal preference. I'm still not a fan of the UI
I'm just bringing it up now on the show here.
If you look at the dock, they've gone back to the 2D dock of 2002 2D dock. I mean, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan. But I mean, that's the only bad thing I have to say about it is I'm not a fan of the UI. As far as the features go, as far as continuity goes, as far as some of the features that they built into Mail and Safari, I have no complaints, and I think it's a great thing.
Well, I like the fact how they're handling large attachments in Mail. That's kind of cool. You'll get a link, and then you can download it there, which is really cool.
Again, kind of in competition with Dropbox.
Yeah, exactly. Because I kind of use Dropbox to share a large file.
I just hope that things like messages, I just want my messages to work correctly. you can throw in all the new features you want, like the new voice feature and messages that they baked in and all this. That's all great and everything, but that's fine. I just want my messages to work properly.
And of course, speaking of that, the phone, the integration of being able to take a phone call from your Mac.
Skype killer.
No, I don't see it as a Skype killer. I don't see it as a Skype killer. Hey, let's not forget the reality of the situation is that it's still pretty much a Windows PC world out there. Mm-hmm. What would be cool I really wish Apple would come out messages to run on Windows. That would be killer.
I don't think they ever will.
I don't think they will, but it said the same thing about iTunes initially, right?
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
If you could imagine messages running on Windows and then be able to make and place calls with your phone on Windows, I think that would be cool.
If it's anything like iTunes on Windows, I'd rather not see it.
Right.
I'll just be honest with you.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience. Well, iTunes on Windows.
iTunes itself is one of those things.
It's in need of an overhaul.
Well, right, and they didn't say anything about iTunes at all.
For example, iTunes Radio, why didn't they just make that a separate app?
iTunes is one of those things I really wish they would go in and just completely strip it down and start over from the ground up.
Oh, they have to. They're going to have to because it's like Microsoft Outlook. It's big, bloated, and a pig. Yep. And it's trying to do too many different things.
Well, the thing is, people wanted it. People asked for it.
Well, they wanted the functionality, but they didn't necessarily want it all in one program.
Right, and that's the thing. But people
that's one of the reasons I truly believe, Jack, that iTunes Radio's ultimately failed and it is a failure.
Well, it's because they baked it into iTunes.
Exactly. It should have been a separate app on your iPhone, your iPad, and even on the Mac.
Yep. I agree.
It should have been because half the people don't even know it's there.
I think here's the thing. I
don't even know it's there.
Right. I think consumers, a lot of times, they cut their own throats because they say,
Jack,
I want this to do more. I want this to do more.
You cannot ever, ever, ever blame the consumer.
I think people ask for one application to do way too much, and then they complain when all these features are baked into one application.
Okay, but whose fault is that? It's not the consumer. They're asking for a feature. They're asking for a benefit.
But they're not the ones Steve Jobs was right when he said we can't give people what they want because people don't know.
Okay, but it's obvious we've not been giving people what they want with iTunes, or else iTunes Radio would have been a success.
I think we've been giving people in iTunes. Well, I say we, like I'm part of Apple.
Yeah, you're
Apple. I think
that hat, by the way,
it's the hat.
Yeah,
I think Apple has been trying to give people what they think people want in this one application. I don't think you can do it in one application. I think
you can't take on. Yeah, but I mean, let's be realistic. You can't take on Pandora. You can't take on Spotify. You can't take on Beats, and do it completely different than everybody else.
Let's split iTunes up into 4 or 5 different applications, and let's see which ones survive. The ones that people don't use, they're going to get weeded out and they're going to be left behind in the garbage anyway. And the ones that people do use, then you can unify it. But most people don't use half the features baked into iTunes. Well, most people don't even know they're there.
I mean, iTunes in and of itself, most people want their music in the cloud. We know this. Mm-hmm. Would have very little use anymore for...
I'm not one of them, but yeah.
Yeah, most people have very little use anymore for buying CDs or copying CDs and converting them to MP3s.
Right.
Very few people do that anymore. They just need library management of their music. They could have a music app which has the iTunes Radio and you get it part of your iCloud subscription. Boom, there it is, and it handles your digital music and everything. That's separate. Then there's a movie app if you want. I don't even think you really need it on your Mac. You need it on your Apple TV.
Agreed.
That's where you need that at, all right? Yep. As far as, you've got a podcast app, great. It doesn't need to be baked into iTunes. Okay, the bookstore thing, the iBooks or whatever, that's a different situation.
Right.
So, yeah, part of it does need to be split apart. Listen, we're running short of time here. So, As usual. And so we got one more thing to cover. I mean, we could go on about WWDC
Right.
I'll give you my take on WWDC. It was an exciting conference. I was excited about continuity. I think it leapfrogs Apple ahead of Android and Windows as far as the overall ecosystem.
Agreed.
Still say Android makes better hardware right now as of today than Apple as far as the iPhone and the iPad for the value for the dollar. And Windows Phone is superior in some ways to both Android and iOS. That's my take. But that being said, the entire experience of iOS and continuity is killer right now. And this is something that's going to have to push Google and Microsoft forward. That is my take.
I can sum it up in one sentence.
Yes.
Better is as better does.
There you go. I can't argue with that. Speaking of, you tickled me when this, you posted the picture. I'm going to bring it up here and I'm going to tell everybody what we're looking at here. Can't really make it much bigger, but what you're seeing there is this is
it was an AMD processor.
What version of AMD processor was this?
It's AMD 3. I think a 4.3 gigahertz AMD 3. But yeah, that was a failed attempt. There's a student of mine that I have in my jiu-jitsu class that he brought his failed custom build to me, and him and a friend of his got on Newegg. They ordered the parts and they decided to build the system themselves. They had watched a few YouTube videos on how to assemble a system. And I know people are going to say, well, it's not that hard to do. Well, if it's your first time ever building a system, it can be kind of, there's certain little tricks of the trade, that you don't pick up. And so they put this system together. It didn't work. They couldn't get it to post. The lights would come on, the fans would come on. And they brought it to me, and I took the system apart. I assumed, and falsely so, I should not have assumed this, but I assumed it was the motherboard because it had a cheap MSI motherboard in it. Those are very prone to failure. A lot of them are DOA. So, and I've only seen maybe 3 processors go bad in 12 years. Okay, so I pulled everything out. I looked at the board, said, okay, the board's probably bad. I went ahead and I got him a new board. Got the new board in, connected everything, and when I went to pull the processor to connect it to the new board, I looked at it, and that's what it looked like. It had 11 bent pins. So basically, it looked like somebody tried to use a mallet to install this processor. And I mean, it's absolutely horrible. I don't know if most people don't know this, but if one of those
what part do you not get about lining the little triangles up there on
it's horrible.
Gently put it there. You'll feel it. You'll actually feel it all line up.
Pull the little lock bar down. Click. Yep. It's in. Yep.
And these guys mashed it. They put it in there, didn't get it in there right, and just mashed it down in there.
Forced it in there, exactly.
And I'm surprised they didn't have a whole hell of a lot more bent pins than that.
Oh, it's rough. I don't know. So I contacted Newegg, and I'm RMAing the board, and I'm going to order him a new processor, and we're going to get this situation resolved. But it just goes to show, I mean, you can you build a custom system? Can you get a couple of 15, 16-year-old kids out here and build a custom system? Sure,
absolutely.
I know kids that do it all the time, but you really need someone around who knows what they're doing. You really do. For your first couple of builds, get a friend that's put several of these machines together to come help you. Just watching YouTube videos and going out and ordering $1,000 worth of parts is not the way to do it.
I agree with that. It's always best to have somebody kind of give you a helping hand the first time or two.
That's a $200 processor. He can't get his money back on that.
That's done. It's cooked.
That's a very
You know what that is? That's called the stupid tax.
That is a stupid tax.
He paid the stupid tax, and now he's hopefully learned. And on that note, we need to be wrapping up this episode of Typical Geeks. It was a lot of fun, and we could actually go another full hour. We just got started on WWDC, but we've got to cut it for the night. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Until later, take care. Jack? All right. So, see you, folks.